I got a question for you.
Yep, I'm listening.
Heading into the 2020 NBA season, is Nikola Jokic the best player?
Heading into the 2023 season, you mean?
Yeah, 2022-23 NBA season. Is Nikola Jokic the best player in the association?
No, I would say it's Giannis.
You say it's Giannis? Why?
Yeah. Just in terms from a dominating standpoint. Like there's one guy, at least right now, where I feel like, okay, I think he can really lead us to victory in this one game or in this one series. It would be Giannis. There is a difference between MVP and best player, to be very, very clear.
Thank you. Yep.
Jokic can mess around and win it a third time this year. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. My answer would probably still remain the same. I think it's more of, obviously no one is like truly, truly afraid of, the other 450 players in the league, but like at the same time, there's a difference between when you're facing Giannis and you're facing Jokic. Like there's a certain level of like, all right, shit. But I would say Giannis. I wouldn't say Jokic though. You?
I wouldn't, definitely not Nikola Jokic, but I would probably give the edge to Giannis or KD right now. But another question I have to ask: has Nikola Jokic ever been better than LeBron James?
Wow. That's a very good question.
This past season, or this 2 MVP campaigns, has Nikola Jokic ever been better than LeBron James?
Wow, that's tough. I feel like I have to say yes to that.
Why?
I feel like I have to, because at the end of the day, the most recent and reigning MVP versus a guy who was on a team that didn't make the play-in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know, damn, that's a rough question because I really don't like having to answer it this way. But, I mean, when you really think about it, I think the name recognition for LeBron is obviously there. It holds so much weight. But if you look at it, it's not crazy to say. It's not crazy to say that Jokic at some point recently has been better than LeBron. That doesn't mean that
both healthy. Who you taking right now?
LeBron James. LeBron James. That's not the same thing, though. Just to be clear, that's not the same thing.
That's not the same. Well, to me it is, because it's just kind of like.
Well, I'm just saying though, like
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but to me it is. It's just kind of like, I understand that MVP holds a lot of weight to some people's eyes. I understand that analytics crowd, holds a lot of weight to a lot of people, and that favors Nikola Jokic for a lot of different reasons. We can talk all day about like analytics and eye tests and what really matters the most, but it's pros and cons of both. But for it's like a basketball standpoint, I don't think it's ever been a time where a healthy Nikola Jokic versus a healthy LeBron James, that I would pick Nikola Jokic over LeBron James. Now, if you want to base things off of team regular season success, then sure. But like, if you really get down to the nuances of it, and we're talking about when each player is healthy, who would you rather have? Who would you rather go to war with when it matters the most in the playoffs? That player is still LeBron James. And that's LeBron James, not only for Nikola Jokic, that's LeBron James over a lot of guys, in my opinion.
Of course. I mean, but that's just it, though. If you're adding the word if into it, if so-and-so is healthy, if.
Well, I'm just saying, injuries are part of the game. Like, I think we get so caught up in like seeing that guys are hurt and then forgetting like, oh, okay, this guy had a better regular season than this other player. But I always tell people it's a difference between guys having a better regular season than being better overall. And I can say that for a lot of guys, because Julius Randle, the year he went to an all-NBA team, he had a better regular season than a lot of guys. But was he a better overall player than some of the power forwards? Probably not. You know what I'm saying? So that's the same thing. I'm just looking at Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic had a better regular season than damn near everybody in the NBA the past 2 years. But going to war with, it's probably how many guys you taking over him to go to war with in the playoffs. Probably.
Yeah, like, I mean, I still,
5, 7, 8.
I still would like my chances if Jokic was leading my team, into battle. I still think though that,
of course, yeah,
he can be though. I will say I think he can be the best player on a championship team.
Okay.
Like even because I don't know if there's been too many MVPs that have won before where I wouldn't say that or be comfortable saying that with, but I wouldn't put Jokic on that list. I think because again, we talk about injuries. The Nuggets weren't fully healthy this year, so
true.
If they were, who knows what could have happened. But I mean, on LeBron's front too, the whole if game. Some players are like, well, if they were on a different team, that's another one, right?
Yeah.
If they had a better coach or if they were in a different scenario or whatever. Fortunately for LeBron, I think wherever, of course, he goes, he's going to shine. But considering, especially too, if we're talking about right now, heading into this season, you know, I think play this. I think a case can be made, right, on the Jokic front. It's something that I would entertain. I don't think it's a for sure like, oh, you know, someone wouldn't be crazy for thinking that. You know,
it's okay. How do you feel about Kawhi Leonard? Kawhi Leonard's coming off a serious ACL injury. Who are you taking, Nikola Jokic or LeBron over Kawhi? Like, what's the conversation?
I would definitely take Jokic over Kawhi right now, heading into this season. That I would say is for sure for me. Because again, we've seen Jokic, and to make it even worse, we haven't seen Kawhi. You know what I'm saying? So again, but Kawhi can come around and you know, I don't pick him to like win MVP. Kawhi to me isn't that type of player, but I can easily see him winning Finals MVP. You know, the Clippers are still stacked, but I mean, like, just heading to the season, like we've seen Jokic, and we've seen Kawhi. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, like, anytime you're coming off an injury, like not everyone can be Kevin Durant, like
at the highest level. My only problem with that is just like, I feel like people get so caught up. Now, I want to bring this conversation to you because I feel like I've been arguing with people for the past several days about this topic. I just feel like people get so caught up in the regular season and sometimes these awards and looking at the analytics and these advanced stats and stuff like that, that we tend to forget, like, in the postseason, that shit don't really matter. And then it's guys that you put over certain guys that are all in a similar tier and stuff like that. But then when you break it down to when it comes to the postseason time, when it's time to go to war and stuff, like, I'm taking Jimmy Butler over Nikola Jokic all day. I'm taking Jimmy Butler over, you know, Anthony Davis all day. I'm taking Jimmy Butler over Joel Embiid all day to lead my team, to run my team, to like take them to the promised land. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like in the regular season, that may sound crazy to some people that you would take Jimmy Butler over Nikola Jokic because we know what Nikola Jokic does in the regular season. But come postseason time, that's what I'm saying. That's why I have a hard time when people start doing these rankings and stuff, and when they're putting players over like, oh, this player, because, oh, he's an MVP and he puts up these crazy numbers, these crazy stats. But then when it matters the most, it's about several guys that a lot of people will pick over this particular player. You get what I'm saying? So I just want to bring that conversation to you.
Yeah, but I would say if I had to guess, so a lot of people may agree with you on that stance. Clearly, it's not just a talent thing, but it's also like a motor thing. It's like Jimmy has that dog in him. Not all top players in the league have that.
Jokic got a dog too. Though.
You think, but so that's why with Jokic specifically, I don't think I would do that in terms of Jokic and Butler. I think I would still go the Jokic route. Now again, if I felt that Jokic was, you know, just talented and, you know, could get stats and all that, but he didn't have a motor, then I would go with Jimmy regardless.
But Nikola Jokic haven't shown you anything that Jimmy Butler has showed you in the playoffs. So why would you pick Nikola Jokic over Jimmy Butler? Is it because of the MVP in the regular season? Because it show don't have anything to do with the playoffs. That's what I'm saying. It's a difficult conversation that, you know, luckily we get to talk about.
Yeah, well, unfortunately too, I know obviously we talk about the positives of a player, but as much as we want to say that we've seen Jimmy perform at the highest level, we've also seen Jimmy, you know, not do that. Yeah, and so it all depends on
right. One bad playoff series too, though. That's another reason. That's what I'm saying. Like, just because like the regular season can help guys, it also can like hurt guys as well. Sometimes, like most people, I still feel like Kevin Durant is probably the best player in the world. Some people are going to say it's Giannis. You know, I think it's a top two situation. So whoever you pick, it's like whatever the case may be. But it's some people that's going to feel like, no, Kevin Durant's top 5 now. Like, he's dropped down because of the playoff series. So we've seen like the best of both situations. All I'm saying is like, I think we get too caught up on like certain things and certain numbers and certain like, you know, narratives that people want to push. But when it matters the most, like in the playoffs, it's guys that definitely always rise to the occasion that you kind of forget about. Like a prime example of this was like Tony Parker. That's why I'm so high on Tony Parker. Nobody in the regular season used to say Tony Parker is the best point guard in the world. But every time the postseason came around and he started doing the things that he was doing, that best point guard in the world conversation always used to come up. Like, Tony Parker in the playoffs is the best point guard in the world. Tony Parker is probably the best point guard in the world. Because it's just like, are you elevating your game when it matters the most? And it's not, and sometimes it's not other guys' faults because of their team situations and other players and stuff like that. Like you could talk about Nikola Jokic, like he shows up, so it ain't really his fault in the playoffs compared to him not showing up. But it's just like it's certain players that we tend to forget about, and that's why I use Jimmy Butler, because Jimmy Butler is like that perfect example. Like a legit argument can be made that after Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler probably had the best playoff run other than Stephen Curry. You know what I'm saying? Like entire run, even though he didn't go to the NBA Finals. So, but nobody was mentioning Jimmy Butler as a top 10 candidate, top 10 player during that regular season until like the playoffs came around. So it's a tricky situation.
Yeah, well, if I'm an organization, I would prefer it that way. Like I'd rather have you show up during the playoffs and vibe or whatever during the regular season, because there's players that do the opposite. There's players that chase stats during the regular season. There's players that, you know, show up. There's players that go crazy during the regular season. But then the playoffs come around and it's clip. Yeah. It's like, I don't think you get paid for the regular season. You get paid for how you perform in the playoffs. And so, I mean, I think, and a good thing I feel like about Jimmy is that he knows that. You know, like, you can just kind of tell. I don't think, like, Jimmy relaxes during the regular season. I'm not saying that. But, like, you just know that he knows, all right, let's do what we got to do during the regular season, but come playoff time, we here. You know, we not playing no games. You know, so, but yeah, I mean that run he when he took the Heat to the finals in the bubble, I actually had Jimmy in my top 10 at the time.
Yeah,
people were looking at me like I was crazy. I mean, it's the playoffs where all these rankings, in my opinions, tend to shift players up and down. Like the playoffs hold, especially if you go to the finals, the playoffs hold so much weight. So
I would say the playoffs hold a lot of weight, but I also would say, like, let's not always get caught up in like who's had the better regular season and automatically assume like they're the better player overall. And this is a conversation I'm about to bring to you, another topic. I was talking to folks about New York Knicks fans and stuff like that, and they were saying that Jalen Brunson going to the New York Knicks, if Donovan Mitchell comes, he's going to be the second option on our team, right? But that's a what if, right? Let's talk about what's actual reality. On the Knicks roster right now, we got Jalen Brunson, we got RJ Barrett, we got Julius Randle. Who out of those three would you say has to be the number one option? Because some Knicks fans are telling me it's Jalen Brunson. And I'm saying personally, like, I understand that Jalen Brunson had a phenomenal postseason run, had a phenomenal year, but I don't think he's a better basketball player overall than Julius Randle and RJ Barrett.
I think it has to be RJ. I think this has to be the year that RJ takes that jump, right? Like, I think we've had an episode recording before, like, can RJ make the All-Star game? You know, I think if the Knicks really want to make waves, I think he has to be that engine, if you will, right? Shout out to Julius, you know, shout out to Jalen, getting that contract. Both been paid now. But if the Knicks really want to make moves, it's going to have to be RJ. And it doesn't. I'm not saying that, like, it has to be RJ's team and the rest of the guys have to fall in line. But, like, they're not going, because he's the only one I feel who may have star potential, right? He's the one who, you know what I'm saying, was drafted that high and may have maybe even superstar potential. Who knows? But those other guys, you know, Julius, Jalen, great ball players, but I don't think, like, their ceiling, in my opinion, isn't as high as what RJ's can be. And so because that's the case, you might as well, if you had to choose one as your option, I would go RJ.
If Donovan Mitchell,
but Jalen is cold though. By the way, Jalen is very cold. I think he doesn't get enough respect. People will talk about, you know, Luka took, you know, his second best player was Jalen Brunson, which I get it. You know, Jalen isn't Chris Paul or whatever, or All-Star, whatever, but Jalen is very, very cold. Like, even dating back to his high school days, like, the real know how good of a basketball player Jalen is. You know, people may feel like he was they may have paid him a little too much, but he's pretty good. You know, he's a real deal.
He's a good NBA starter. That's what he is. If Donovan Mitchell is on the New York Knicks, who do you think has to be the second option? Jalen Brunson or RJ Barrett or Julius Randle?
You know, that's a good question. So I would say Jalen.
Okay.
That's crazy, right? So If Donovan doesn't go, I would say RJ. If Donovan does go, I would say Jalen.
Over RJ. Why?
Correct. Because it's one thing, because, some players are better at being a number one option. Some players are better at being a number two option. I think the pressure changes when you're in different roles. Like, I feel like players like Lamar Odom come to mind, right? Rajon Rondo, like when they were inserted as like the third or even fourth option, their game skyrocketed. And that's okay. Like in this league, like knowing your role is pretty much half the battle. And so I think in those type of situations, and also too, I feel like Jalen is used to it. After playing with someone like Luka, who's very ball dominant, Spider, can come and, allow Jalen to, take some of the pressure off him.
So you say, but my only issue is that you said that you feel like for the ceiling purpose standpoint, that RJ has the highest ceiling out of those guys, Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson. But if Donovan Mitchell comes on, RJ Barrett's going to play the third option.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, because it's just like I look at it this way. Regardless of if Donovan Mitchell comes on or not, I feel like you said, like RJ Barrett has to take that leap. Like it would be for an offensive standpoint, Jalen Brunson is a better offensive player than RJ Barrett, but better overall, RJ Barrett is better overall to me. So in order for him to take that next leap, I feel like we're at, regardless of the situation, he has to be the guy or the second guy if Donovan Mitchell comes on. If he doesn't, he has to be the first guy, because I don't see a situation where I will feel like that's a slap on the face if you're a Knicks fan if Donovan Mitchell comes on and then Jalen Brunson is your second best player, because that lets me know that RJ Barrett is basically being stagnant. Like he's not elevating, he's not growing. You know what I'm saying? Like I like Jalen Brunson a lot. A 5'10" guy that can do a lot of things on the basketball court. But if you're telling me a number 3rd overall draft pick, a 6'8" wing that can play both sides of the ball isn't a second option on your team, that's kind of a problem.
Yeah. But I think too, so another factor here is like, if we're being honest, is identifying what the goals are of the team this season. So right now, right, whether you think the Knicks are making the playoffs or playing whatever, that's why I said RJ being the number one option. Because, like, all right, you might as well allow him to develop if you don't think they're going to make the playoffs. But if Spider joins the team.
Same situation to me, personally. Yeah. Playing situation, if playing team possibly, if Donovan Mitchell comes or he doesn't come. I'm not looking at it like we got 6 teams in the Eastern Conference. We got the Boston Celtics, we got the Miami Heat, we got the Bucks, we got the Brooklyn Nets if they remain intact. We got the Philadelphia Sixers, and we got the Atlanta Hawks. The New York Knicks aren't better than any of those 6 teams with Donovan Mitchell or without Donovan Mitchell, in my opinion. So it's kind of like a playing situation to me, whether Donovan Mitchell comes or not.
That's true. That's true. Something ran across my mind. Over or under the Hawks getting a 5.5 seed. Over under 5.5 seed for the Hawks in the Eastern Conference. Because I mean, you were talking about teams and
yeah, teams. So. I'm gonna say over.
So
I think they can be more than a top 4 seed in the East next year. So if everything goes right, I believe so. I don't know what's gonna happen with the Brooklyn Nets, but it's not.
Yeah, no one does.
It's looking kind of nasty. But I don't. Other than the Bucks in Miami, it's like in Boston. That's 3. Everybody else, Philly. Can the Hawks be better than Philly? Yeah, like can it be better than the Brooklyn Nets? If all those guys return, yeah, we saw the Nets were the 7th seed last year. You know what I'm saying? Like who? Like I feel like with the addition of Murray, who I feel like may be arguably the most all-around guard in the league, if not the best, probably like top 3. Like he does a lot of great things on offensive side of the floor, but also on the defensive side of the floor. Like he's gonna do really, really well with paired next to Trae Young. So I think that's gonna be a duo, a nightmare duo to like teams are gonna have to look out for on a nightly basis. And then we got like the Chicago Bulls, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan. We know what they're about, but it's just like, are they gonna take the next step and elevate? I don't know. So it's just kind of like, yeah, I see the Hawks can be more than a 5th seed. I don't think that's really like controversial.
No, I don't know. A lot of people don't even think they're going to make the plan. I mean,
I
it's
won't
still.
say all that.
I mean, so this is a wings league, right? It's a wings league, unless your name is Stephen Curry, and even then, you're still surrounded by a bunch of talent.
Hawks got a lot of talent.
Yeah, but I mean, their two best players are guards.
One is 6'5", and one is what is Murray's like 6'6". It ain't like a situation that the Knicks are talking about doing, where you're gonna have 2 6-footers. Talk about potential have a backcourt with Mitchell and Brunson. That's another thing like Knicks fans need to worry about as well. But like Trey 6'1" and Murray's like what 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". So,
yeah, there's like I was watching a video the other day. I think it was Chris Paul, Steph, and Bron talking about how they hate when DeJounte guards him, or like. Chris was like how he has trouble with DHOs when DeJounte's guarding him. Like that length and athleticism on the defensive side of the floor is real. Like it's real. But I mean, even still though, like I'm not saying that the backcourt can't get it done. But again, it would be nice. Think about who the best teams in the league are now. Right? They all have wings. So
the best team that won a championship, best player was a guard.
Right. That's what I said. Unless your name is Stephen Curry, who is a top 10 player of all time. So that's Love Trey and I love Durante, but that's not the same thing.
I mean, yeah, I feel like Trey he's cut from that cloth, though. I think he's already proved that he's cut from that cloth for taking the Atlanta Hawks to that Eastern Conference Finals appearance. So I feel like he's cut from that cloth, that Stephen Curry, that Allen Iverson, Isaiah Thomas cloth. I think he's cut from it.
Pump the brakes. I see what you mean. I see what you're saying, but this isn't to take anything away from Trey, but I think the only difference is now. One, I still got to see at least one. Well, more, I got to see more consistency in terms of playoff success. Because you can make the case that I don't think the Hawks got lucky that season, but like they caught a lot of people by surprise, right? That's not happening anymore. So that run, okay, they did what they had to do this year. But until we start seeing it more often and consistency, I'm not talking about big games. I'm talking about
Trae Young
like
has had more. I understand that for consistency in the playoffs and going on deep runs and stuff like that. All I'm gonna say is like Trae Young, early on in his career, has done more than some Hall of Famers have done. I know that may sound crazy, but it's just kind of like when we talk about like being early in your career and reaching the Eastern Conference Finals. Even Luka Doncic, like we talk a lot like, yo, Luka, you need to get out the first round. Like get into the conference finals of your respective conference is not an easy thing to do, especially when you're super young. So that's all I'm saying. So give these guys some credit. I think Trae Young, of course, he got room to grow and stuff like that. But I'm just like, he's already shown early on in his career that without a real number two, even Luka, I would say, I know Jalen Brunson was a phenomenal average of 21 points this past playoffs and stuff like that. But it's people that's gonna say that like if you can have that argument like, yo, they had a number two, but it's just not like some of the other number twos that we're used to. If you can have that argument with your best player and on those teams and say they still went to their respective conference finals, that's a big deal to me. So that's all I'm saying with Trae Young.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but it was just when I heard the names AI, Isaiah Thomas, and Stephen Curry. But they all won.
He's gonna go to a finals. So, Trae Young is gonna go to a finals.
I'm with it.
Maybe multiple. Like I don't think it's like his game is. He's a guard like. He's like Tiny Archibald. Like he is a guard we haven't seen in a long, long time. Anytime you can lead in points, total points, and total assists, like you're a special talent. And now you got a player that can like hide you on the defensive side of the court. Like and he can handle the ball and play make. And that means you can start exploring to elevate your game in an off-ball situation. Like when we've never seen Trae Young get easy shots. This is the first time in his career since he's been in the NBA, Trae Young is going to probably get some easy shots because of Murray in the backcourt. Like think about that. We've never seen. When have you ever seen Trae Young come off a screen and catch and shoot? Like you never seen that. So this is a part of Trae Young's game that's going to be elevated, and he's going to get to develop because they have Murray now in the backcourt.
You know what? You're right. I want to ask you too. This could be our cap or no cap. Cap or no cap, Trae Young will make an All NBA team this season.
I'm going to say no cap. And that's not because of Trae Young's game. It's not because he's not talented. But I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like for Trae Young in awards, it's always an uphill battle a little bit to me. for his like the media respect. One year, like he doesn't make an All-Star game. Next year, he's starting an All-Star game. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just constantly like back and forth. And like the people that are voting on these awards don't want to give him the credit when it's due. So I'll say no just because of that. It's not gonna have anything to do with his talent or his game and stuff like that. It's strictly because I just feel like a lot of people are not gonna give him, you know, his credit he deserves.
Oh, so you're saying you don't think it's going to happen?
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen.
Oh, I thought you were saying no cap. Okay, but yeah, I mean, I hope he makes it.
Yeah.
Because if he does, that means it most likely will be winning. I know that's not always the only indicator of if someone is on one of those 3 teams, but
switches. Like Brad didn't even make the All-Star game this year, and the year before that he was on the worst team in the NBA, and he started the All-Star game. You know what I'm saying? Like it switches so much.
The goalposts tend to get moved every year. It feels like with a lot of these awards, a lot of these teams and stuff like that. Like it's. But, you know, there's certain players who you kind of just know are going to be on there. Like, Steph's probably going to be on there. Embiid, Jokic, Giannis, so on and so forth. But there's probably going to be – I'm looking forward to who, like, a new person on these teams are going to be. Or, like, someone who's going to get their first All-NBA first team or second or third team.
Like you said, maybe like a RJ Barrett or like a DeAndre Hunter or something like that. Like maybe Porzingis from the Wizards. Like if they have a better season, I get what you're saying. I'm looking forward for that too, as well. Because I think it's going to be one guy this year out of the East. Especially when we don't know what's kind of with the Nets situation. I think it's going to be one guy that nobody really expects that comes out and it's like, oh shit, like he's elevated his game. Maybe RJ Barrett and maybe DeAndre Hunter. Maybe. I don't know, Kyle Kuzma. I don't know. Like,
all right, well, you're not going in the right direction that I was thinking of, but I was thinking of Anthony Edwards.
I was looking for the East. I was talking about the East.
It doesn't matter. We're talking about all NBA
I was talking about the East. We was talking about the Hawks, so I was staying on the East. I was staying on the Eastern side.
I don't know what's I don't know.
I was staying on the East. Yeah, I was staying on the East.
Okay, fine. I'll stay on the East side too. But originally, so mine was Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, we were talking about Anthony Edwards.
I think that's a reasonable, believable pick for first time.
It's not a mean guy.
No. I'm saying because names that you were saying, there are levels. That's Anthony Edwards. Bada boom, bada boom.
Of course, but I'm just saying. I'm talking about the East. We were talking about the Atlanta Hawks. We wasn't talking about We wasn't talking. Of course, Anthony Edwards. Of course, he can be an All-Star next year.
No. See, this is it. We were saying all NBA team.
Okay, all NBA team, All-Star, all NBA team.
Big difference.
Oh, big difference. Oh, Anthony Edwards. Hell no.
Okay.
Hell no. I thought we was talking about. I got switched. We was talking about all NBA, and then we was talking about Trae Young, and I'm starting thinking about like who was going to be like their first like. I was talking about All-Star for it's like RJ Barrett and DeAndre Hunter and like Porzingis. I wasn't talking about all NBA team.
I meant first time all NBA team.
First time all NBA team. We can say this for another day.
That wasn't. I mean, it wasn't really a question. I was just that.
I know. But I'm saying this is a good conversation we can say for another day. But but Trae Young, I don't think he's going to be in the all NBA team next year. I hope he is.
But yeah, for reasons outside of basketball, the game is a game.
Yeah.
But yeah, just some housekeeping items before we slide. All right. Make sure you subscribe to No Pump Fakes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, as well as Spotify. All right. Subscribe to No Pump Fakes wherever you get your podcasts. Okay. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, as well as Spotify. All right. And just like that, y'all, we gone. Peace. What's up, y'all? It's Theus McBee. Make sure you go follow No Pump Fakes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to your podcasts.